Hey there, it's time for the show, the Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. Josh is hard at work on a secret project over at Voltoro, but I will be here with you today to talk with Michael Heise from the Mises Caucus, which is like a rebellion against the Libertarian National Party. Michael and I have known each other for a long time. He's been a Ron Pauler. We were talking, I think back in 2012. So thanks, Mike, for joining the show. I think this might be your first or second time on the Tatiana Show, but welcome.
Thank you. And I know I've been tough to get a hold of. I apologize. Been busy, so I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
As am I. So if you could give people a little bit of background about you and how you got involved in libertarianism.
Sure. So, I go all the way back to when I was 14 years old. I'm 32 now, so I've been involved for a little while. While not libertarianism per se, what got me involved originally was like 9/11 truth when I was about 14 years old. So, InfoWars was a little bit different back then. They were interviewing Ron Paul a lot. They were doing really good documentaries and all that kind of stuff. So when I was really young, I got into that stuff, which led me and my friends who were with me on that to Ron Paul. And once I encountered Ron Paul, that's when I kind of went from more conspiracy stuff to like actual ideas. And just the first time I heard Ron on YouTube was in 2008, and all his ideas I agreed with. It just like the way I've always said it is that when you're so young, you don't have the life experience to build up paradigms to like build up the cognitive dissonance. You know what I mean? So it just hits like common sense, and I'm like, oh yeah, everything that guy just said just makes total sense. And it resonated with me. And I would add on top of that when I was young at that time, I was really going through it in my home and personal life. And so Ron really acted not just as a philosophical and ideological inspiration, but also like a personal inspiration of somebody I would like to be like, and that I didn't have to be the depressed thing that I was at that time. So, he really changed my life. And then from there, I went down the Mises Institute rabbit hole. I started getting into anarchist groups on Facebook. I kind of earned my stripes, fighting with people on there, and quickly went from minarchist to anarchist after Ron Paul got screwed in the 2012 election. And from there, I started doing some writing. I did some podcasting, some man on the street interviews, started organizing events, and it's just been an adventure ever since.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I like that. I like to hear the original stories, and those are definitely very formative years. One of the cool things about the Ron Paul movement was it had people from all ages getting involved, but especially the young people, because people think of young people as idiots on Instagram. But there was a lot of passion and so many people going, and obviously things have deteriorated since then, right? So for me, with Ron Paul, seeing what happened in 2012, I was like, forget these elections. They're completely rigged. I don't even care anymore. Like, I literally don't care. So in 2016, you have Clinton versus Trump, which was hilarious. And then you have 2020, which was just, in my opinion, obviously like not accurate election results, right? So, I think that that's pretty obvious. Why are you even giving a crap about like politics? Because you've probably observed the same things. And now we're going to get into the Mises Caucus, but more broadly, like, why do you even have any faith in this system at all? Or do you consider this an educational mission?
I consider a little bit of both. It's hard to tell now because the way that the leadership of the Libertarian Party is. But believe it or not, the Libertarian Party was founded to be educational. It was founded to preach the gospel of the liberty message. And it was founded right around the same time that Ron Paul first ran for office. It was a reaction to the breakdown of the Bretton Woods Agreement in 71. And, Murray Rothbard had gotten involved. All the intellectual luminaries of the time were involved. And that was the mission of the party, was to preach the message. It is, I would say, over the past 15 years especially, turned into a more politically oriented machine, which is not, when you're not very good at obtaining political power, it's not very good to be promoting yourself as a politically oriented machine. But yet here we are. And that is a big motivation for the Mises Caucus. And essentially, there's we're about politics where we can, meaning local. And given that we're the Mises Caucus, if there's a political principle that we're after, it's decentralization. So we really focus on like local level nullification legislation, local level candidates, and arming them with nullification legislation. And we're under no delusions that we're going to save this ship. And save the dollar and like all of this kind of thing. That's what Ron Paul always told us, is that this is destined to fail and there's nothing we can do about it. So, we're more interested in creating bastions and doing that through decentralization.
Okay, cool. So more formally, what is the Mises Caucus? Because you have the Libertarian National Convention or Libertarian National Party, and that's where they've got all the, it's the LP, right?
Snakes.
And so is this meant to be a whole other different political party, like the Green Party or something? Or is it a complement? Or is it trying to break the LP and then make it into a Mises thing? Like, I don't understand.
So generally speaking, a caucus in general is a focus group within a political party that has certain goals and views that it wants to push to the front of that political party. And I would say that is an accurate representation of what we are. Essentially what we want is for the Ron Paul revolution, the liberty movement, to enter the party and actually have the party represent the movement, which it hasn't done. As I'm sure you know, most libertarians, the vast majority of libertarians, are not in the Libertarian Party and are actively embarrassed by the Libertarian Party. And it's been like that for as long as I can remember. I was one of those people for the longest time that felt that same way. And so what we are is we have what we call a three-pronged strategy, the Mises Caucus. One is intra-party activism, and that's like the boring stuff. That's recruiting people into the party, moving them up the hierarchy within the party, and doing events, organizing for convention, all of that stuff. Prong two is candidates, but more specifically, again, we're realistic. We're not winning Senate. We're not winning president. We're not winning these things. So to the extent that we are focused on politics, we want to focus where we can, which is where we can win, which is local level, sheriff, city council, judge, stuff like that, where the bumper sticker I have for it is it's a lot easier to get elected to city council and nullify the feds than it is to get elected to the feds and then change the feds. Like, that's not going to happen. So we focus on local, but then we also focus on president, not because we think we can win, but because we think that the role of president for a libertarian is to spread the message and to coalesce the movement and start a new conversation on the national level. And so to the extent that we can do that, we focus on president and local. And then finally, the third prong of the three-prong strategy is issue coalitions. So, we get involved in gun sanctuary efforts. We would get involved in any secession efforts that spring up. We've gotten involved in psychedelic decriminalization, like in Denver, Colorado, and the decriminalized nature movement. We have several issue-based websites where we are building email lists around nullification legislation, like the ones I've already outlined, or like, getting rid of, stingray technology, face readers, plate readers, all of this kind of stuff. So obviously we're also big fans of the 10th Amendment Center and Michael Bolden and Mike Meharry over there.
That's what I was going to say. They were both on the show. They're really good guests. I was thinking while you were mentioning, I'm like, oh, I got to talk to those guys again. So, okay, so you guys are basically trying to influence the LP. What would be your criticism of the LP so far, other than they're not very effective? I mean, I feel like, the last 2020 election, I actually like Jo Jorgensen. I thought she was cool. Like, she seemed nice, but they seem to kind of go with the woke politics kind of vibe, which I don't really care for personally. But I feel like her and Spike were much more aligned candidates than, for example, Bill Weld. Like, that was
Absolutely.
I mean, not to knock on him, maybe he's a nice guy, but like, he wasn't liberty at all, right? Gary Johnson was even part-time, not that much of a libertarian. I like Gary, but I don't think that he was necessarily, he wasn't no Ron Paul, right? So what do you think is the difference there?
So, well, there's two questions there. So I guess I'll start with my thoughts on like Jorgensen and Spike. I agree with you. They were absolutely forward progress in terms of principles, because this is a little bit of inside baseball, but essentially in 2004, there was what was something that happened called the Portland Massacre. The National Convention happened in Portland, and there was an extremely small turnout of delegates to that National Convention. It was like something like 320 people, and they completely gutted the platform. And that's essentially when the moderates and the reformers took over the party and turned it into something more political. And that's when you had Michael Badnarik, and he was a radical candidate, but radical in the sense of like he was talking about sovereign citizen stuff and like, driver's licenses and these more kind of fringe things that aren't necessarily going to resonate. But then ever since 2004, it's been like Bob Barr, Gary Johnson, Bill Weld. They wanted Lincoln Chafee this year. So I would definitely agree that Jorgensen is a return to form in a principle sense, but like you said, she was blue-pilled. She didn't really understand the world around her. She didn't seem to understand the moment that she was entering, and that led to some messaging mistakes that basically betrayed her own base. There's an attitude in the Libertarian Party that the base is the Libertarian Party when the base is actually libertarians, the majority of which are not in the Libertarian Party. So to go to your actual question, what's the problem with the Libertarian Party? Well, I've spent most of my life on my libertarian life in the movement side of things, as you know, as opposed to the party side of things. And the complaints are always the same. It's always bad candidates, bad messaging, bad leadership, no strategy. To put it very bluntly and simply, that's what the complaints always are. So we, as the Mises Caucus, part of that boring part, the recruiting, getting people in, all that stuff, that's what we're doing. We're trying to get our people, Ron Paul revolutionaries, Murray Rothbardians, Misesians, we're trying to bring them in, put them in positions of leadership to kind of echo a messaging style that is more appealing to the movement, so that the movement finally comes in and we can restore the vision of the party as it was originally intended to do, and which it has fulfilled in the past with like people like Harry Brown, people like Ron Paul in '88. It's never been a principled, bold, radical party in the entire time of the internet age, and the game is completely flipped now that you have the internet age. So like, I'm sure you know Dave Smith, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So he is openly talking about running for president. He just got a tweet from Tim Pool the other day saying, yeah, you've got my vote. The last time he was on Joe Rogan, it looked like, it sounded very much so like Joe Rogan would support him. Dave Rubin would support him. So we're at a point now where, yeah, there's algorithmic control. Oh, yeah. I mean, he would be great. I think he would be exactly what I'm talking about. He would coalesce the movement, and for the first time since Ron Paul. And that is extremely important, and it's really important for like the cultural and spiritual health of the movement, because it's languishing. There is no agreement on what do we do, and there hasn't been since Ron Paul, and this would fix that. But my point is that it's not the way that it was even 15 years ago. For the longest time, the dinosaur media, the corporate media, is the only way that you really could get ideas out there. That is not the case anymore. It is the Joe Rogans, it is the Tim Pools, it is the Patrick Bet Davids, it is the big podcasts, and they're a little bit more dissident and independent. The only people who are listening to these corporate media outlets anymore is an aging audience, a audience that is completely dug their heels into whatever their ideology is or their tribal faction, and I don't really think they're up for grabs for the most part anyway. So we've got to find these other avenues, and they're out there, and they are responding to the Mises side of it. That's what's like. I don't see Gary Johnson getting on Tim Pool. I see Dave Smith. And so that's really important. And it is certainly putting a scare into the establishment of the Libertarian Party, as much as the establishment of the Libertarian Party sounds like insanity.
Yeah, like why do they need to? I don't understand why they wouldn't just be happy that people are coming in with fresh ideas and enthusiasm and like resources. And I mean, I've met Nick on several occasions. I don't know, people like complain about him and Tom Woods have fights. Like, I've never seen him really do anything that bad, but I'm not really paying attention. Can't we all just get along? Like, what's the beef right now? So is there beef?
Oh yeah, there's bad beef. There is a whole meat factory. It's bad. So to answer that question, it does really start with Sarwark, because now he's not the chair anymore. It's kind of a dead issue, but just for the purposes of setting the context, he was chair of the party in late 2017 when we got started. And pretty much immediately when we got started, I mean, he literally said that the Mises Institute is the preferred think tank of Nazis. He has called Ron Paul a Russian asset. He has called Tom
Wait,
Woods
why
a
would he call
neo-Confederate.
Ron Paul? Hold on, I never heard him say that. Why would he even say that? That sounds like. Why
It sounds
would he
like
say
something a
such...
Fed would say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying that this is their, all right. I'm not saying that this is their motivation, but it certainly is destructive, and it certainly serves the purpose of keeping the party small and away from the movement and divided and irrelevant and ineffective. Now, if I don't know if that's their goal, they don't say it is, but it certainly is been the effect.
Time out. Do you think that there are, you know how like they used to have in the 60s, you know, people infiltrating the hippies and stuff and reporting and stuff. Do you think that that could be at play, the LP? Because some of the decisions are a little bit questionable, right? Do you think that that's
100%.
it, or you haven't gone conspiracy on that?
No, 100%. Because think about it. So we as libertarians are so used to getting our asses kicked that we forget about how radical what we're offering really is, and how big the implications and the changes in society would be if we ever to become successful. And I think this loser mentality, this loser culture has specifically infiltrated the Libertarian Party. However, if we were to ever reclaim our pride and do something serious, we would be immediately getting blackmail, threats, like all kinds of crazy stuff, because we threaten the established order on pretty much every domain you could imagine. You know, with COVID, the whole will to control thing has infiltrated down to the mayor level. So it's all the way up and down, and we would be like threatening that. We would be threatening the ideological control of academia, of the influence of the media, the power of the state, the centrality of the state, like all of these really important things to the mechanisms of control that they have. So people forget that if we ever to like get the ball rolling, it would be dangerous. It would be radical what we're doing. Like,
yeah, we scared everybody with Ron Paul. And then all of a sudden they took all of that and they put it into Trumpy, like a completely unprincipled dope. Like, I mean, whatever. Trumpy was fun. He did some good things. He did some bad things. But like, how did everybody who believed in liberty and had these great principles all of a sudden get into this mishmash of I don't know, dorks?
Well, what's I think the answer to that is two things. One, there's no way to account for how many people were actually libertarian and how many people were just anti-establishment. Okay. And all libertarians are anti-establishment, but not all anti-establishment people are libertarian. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so there's an element of that. And, you know, the other thing is, what's the alternative? Seriously, what is the actual thing that we have available to us to do something about the situation? Exactly. Bitcoin? Bitcoin and you know, the different agarist methods, and that's great. But look at Bitcoin. In my opinion, part of the reason for the bear market for the 2 years from like 18 to 20 was because of how much they regulated it, how much you became liable on your taxes. They went from like standard capital gains to you're getting hit on every single trade that you make. And I remember people were owing more in crypto taxes than they made in their trades, and it was insane. So I think that had a huge chilling effect. I'm glad things are back up now. I kind of fell out of the news cycle with crypto in the bear market, unfortunately. But yeah, there's no organized attack. There's no and we had that with Ron Paul. And people want to say, oh, well, we're libertarians. We don't need leaders. Leaders and rulers are not the same thing, and rulers emerge organically. We are hardwired to respond to people that exhibit the traits that we admire, and you can't get away from that. So like that aspect of leaders and heroes and shit like that is extremely important, and we haven't had that. We haven't had any coalition of this is what we do next, and that is what I'm attempting to do with the Mises Caucus. And we just have to be realistic that, yeah, we're not getting Senate. Yeah, we're not getting president. But that's not the point. The point is the ship is sinking anyway. So we have to build the bastions. You know, we're the remnant, as Ron Paul always put it.
I like that attitude. It's productive, because I really felt very, oh God, I wept after Ron Paul lost. Like, I just felt like this whole big loss of America. And lately, you know, seeing what's happened with COVID and just how everybody in America is like a bunch of slaves, like, okay, you tell me to wear a mask, I'll take it off, I'll do it, put it on, whatever you say. Like, the whole thing has been really, really disheartening. And I almost feel like there's I don't know, like a clinging to the past, but I think we're in a whole other level now. Like, I think that when the COVID stuff happened, it just became apparent that the monster is real. And he's not waiting under your bed anymore. He's at your door and he's like, "Arr, arr, arr," like crawling at you and like picking off the children on the sides, you know? So I was really also impressed with Dave's speech that he gave at the New Jersey Libertarian Party. I don't know if you saw that. It was just some random thing that came across my feed. And I thought it was
I booked him for that.
fantastic. Yeah. It was so good. I loved it. I thought it was really great. So I'm happy to hear that this, running for president idea is going along. So like if people want to get involved with the Mises Caucus, do they have to wrestle Nick Sarwark or can they be friends with both people?
They can be friends with both people, but I think if they are really into like the side of things that we're in, because basically here's the bet that I'm making with the Mises Caucus. The bet that I'm making is that if you were to look at the whole liberty movement as a pie chart, that the Ron Paul and related, so like Ron Paul 10th Amendment Center, Mises Institute, Ben Swann, like all that stuff that came out of the Ron Paul movement, that is by far the largest slice of the movement pie and therefore the most viable low-hanging fruit for the party. That's the bet that I'm making. If you are in that
makes sense.
Like so if you were in that slice of the pie, sure, you can be friends with Nick Sarwark, but chances are when you start seeing his remarks, it's not going to work out. I mean, Tom Woods is not a neo-Confederate. That's absolutely insane. You know, I mean, the guy went on a debate with Dave Smith and said, you should vote for the Libertarian Party candidate, even if it's Dick Cheney or Adolf Hitler. He said that. Like, it's on video. It's on the Soho Forum. He said that.
I feel like that's so
these are
far
people
from
who,
the Nick that I would hang out with at different events. He seemed pretty normal. I thought he had a commanding presence of the room. But yeah, that doesn't seem very good. And it does seem like all this infighting isn't doing us any favors for sure. Like all those people, they have
the infighting.
Go ahead.
The infighting is a switching of paradigm. That's what it is. It is inevitable in any institution that is going through an identity shift, because that's what's happening in the Libertarian Party. The vision of the Libertarian Party has been primarily political and milquetoast and basically, we can't say anything that'll scare away voters, and essentially there's an attitude where, one, if you identify as a Libertarian Party or as a Libertarian philosophically, you are obligated to be in the Libertarian Party because we have the name, and if you don't like that, then fuck you. And then two is, at the same time, they don't care about libertarians. It sounds so bizarre, but it makes sense in a political way, because libertarians aren't a winning demographic. They're not big enough to win on their own as a demographic. Well, these people are all about political power and politics. So they're more about trying to chase votes than representing libertarians. And that's what we're trying to shift. And it's just so funny because history shows that they're wrong. I mean, they're saying, we can't say anything that's scary. Meanwhile, Ron Paul gets in front of a bunch of like conservative Christians in South Carolina and says, oh yeah, I need the government so I won't do heroin. And they all cheer. And so like it's as long as we are consistent and we have high character and we are passionate about the ideas, truth really does resonate with people. And we have to have faith in that. And that is stronger than politics. And that's what this party is really all about. And that spirit has been lost over the past 15 years. And it's been taken over by people who are trying to get jobs on campaigns, trying to hit 5% so we can get, a couple $1 million in tax money and federal matching funds and just politically oriented things. And essentially they have put the pursuit of political power ahead of the spreading of the message, which in my opinion means they've already become what they hate. So that's what we're about, is just taking it back.
Okay, I'm going to change gears a little bit. So in libertarianism, one of the criticisms, and I would consider myself maybe a little bit more right-leaning at this point, like a little bit more conservative libertarian, right? But at the same time, I feel like women have experienced a lot of, not discrimination, but there's definitely been a lot of sexual abuse and like creepy stuff. Like there's creepertarians, like it's an actual thing, right? And what I've been very disappointed by is when this is reported to leadership in libertarianism, nobody does anything about it and they try and sweep it under the rug because it's bad for the movement. And to me, I feel like that's very disingenuous, right? Because you're supposed to be fighting, the evil overlords and you can't even get like some creepy dude to stop grabbing ass. one criticism that one might make of like the Mises Caucus is, oh, they're too right wing and they're making fun of people for their feelings and they're making fun of snowflakes. And I can understand the oversensitivity and just being annoyed by that kind of thinking, but there is an actual issue that goes on, just like in all parts of society, right? There's creepy chicks like hitting on dudes inappropriately. Do you guys take a position on this? Is there any kind of effort to bring some transparency and accountability to members in the community that are making it unfriendly for other people?
Absolutely.
Or is that not something you guys have thought about?
No, it's absolutely a thing, because I would argue a big problem is in the party and the movement in general is a lack of standards. And if you don't have standards, there's no way that successful people will ever associate with you, because successful people didn't become successful by not having standards for themselves. Mm-hmm. And so they can identify that in people that are trying to get their support or organizations that are trying to get their support. And what you're describing, if you don't have those standards, and that basically sends a signal to the animals to run amok. And then when the animals run amok, they degrade the culture of the entire group or organization. And then the morale of the good people goes down. They start leaving. And then the people that are attracted are worse. And it just becomes a cycle. So basically, the what has to be done is people need to start taking serious enforcing their standards, and leadership in general needs to start enforcing standards, and the community has to start enforcing standards. But what
does that mean though? Because I feel like when I tell people, hey, this guy's a scumbag and he cheated people, or this guy's like an ass grabber, people are like, well, he didn't do it to me, so, oh well, I don't know, he seems nice.
I can tell you,
there's no accountability, and it's a real source of like, I'm like over it, I'm pissed off that people are basically passing the buck. Like, we talk about morality, we talk about these standards, but like, are people really going to do that? Because isn't that a matter of a personal preference? Or is it, you have this person, like let's say Dave Smith, and he's like, stop being a jerk. And then people maybe look up to him and then they edit their behavior in order to accommodate. Like, what do you think is the limit there? Because I don't know if a lot of people have the same values.
I can only speak to how we handle things with the caucus, and we haven't had any like problems of like people ass grabbing and stuff like that, but we have had, people who say a lot of bullshit. Yeah, that not that I know of, but I can only deal with what, and Fair. But I can tell you that when, generally speaking, shitty behavior manifests itself, it seems to me that we're quicker than anybody to just start blocking people, kicking them out of our group, blocking them from our social media, telling them they're not welcome here. And how do we in terms of, I think I know some of the characters you might be referencing in
There's
this.
A lot of characters. Look at Adam Kokesh, right? Not to like call him out, but like Adam has a lot of questionable things in his past.
Yes, he does.
And he's running for president. And like people just continue. He literally threatened me from jail because I told his girlfriend that he's a jerk. Like, what the hell is that about? And people are like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
Sure, you can slap down some little guy, but when it's a big guy, are you going to slap down Adam and be like, hey, Adam, I hear that you're like doing weird stuff. Maybe you cannot do that anymore.
The big thing that put him on my radar is when during his campaign, there was somebody who was critical of his campaign on Steam. I think this dude lives in Japan or something. And, either Adam or his campaign manager tried to hire like some kind of black hat hacker to like dox this dude, and he ended up turning on them and exposing.
Ben Farmer was involved in that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As far as running, unfortunately, there's nothing anybody can do about who runs. Mm-hmm. They could be condemned, but you can't stop somebody from running. However, the one thing that I would offer is that he didn't do very well at all in his run.
He's been grifting for a long time. People are unimpressed. And it's sad because I thought Adam was a wonderful speaker. Originally, I thought he was great, but then he really, deteriorated.
I lived with him at one point. Yeah, I lived with and interned with him at one point.
Oh, so you know exactly what's going on. Because I remember witnessing his internship thing, and that was like Jonestown. It was weird in there, I feel like I'm totally ripping on Adam, but oh well. I'm not taking it back.
Yeah, I lived with him. I lived with him from December of 2012 to March of 2013, right before I got out, right before the raid happened. And there was definitely, I would say the standards thing was definitely at play there. There was people that were brought on to work that shouldn't have been there, that took advantage the second I was gone, and the second there was chaos with him being in jail. And there was definitely, I can remember one thing where he basically tried to, I don't want to say manipulate, but he tried to get me to accept lower pay, or what would have been lower pay, and convince me that it was better for me. And when I wasn't willing to do it, but I was being paid a set amount of money plus free living at the house. And he wanted me to go away from that into making like cold calls, and I would get commissions. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And he was like, oh, do you not have the ambition? Like, you don't think you can like make more money from doing calls? And I'm like, putting together a concert with Immortal Technique right now. I don't think you have the right to talk to me about ambition. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah. So I think with him, at least I think with him, there has been a huge erosion in his audience. Because when I interned for him, he was getting like 1 million hits a month. Like he was really at the peak, I think, at that point. And now, he campaigned for basically 2 years, and he came in one of the last places in the primary last year. And I have been hesitant to associate the brand with him.
I don't know. I feel a little bit bad that we're just sitting here knocking him, but I mean, I don't know. He kind of built that around him. It would be nice to see a little less of that and a little more of the Ron Paul part of the movement that really attracted me. So I'm glad to hear that you are trying to implement those standards and hopefully, lead by example.
Right. And it's fun. That's the thing. It's fun, like the Ron Paul movement was. Like, we have an influx of comedians, of musicians, of young professionals, young entrepreneurs, people who are really good at web marketing, people who are really good at video editing, like just throwing themselves at us to make content, to do all this stuff, do shows, like do stand-up bits for us. And it's fun, man. Like, so about 3 weeks ago, or a month ago, we were in Pittsburgh. We had over 350 people at our event. You never hear anything like that for a Libertarian Party event. And not only was it just that number of people, but it was live, like the Ron Paul thing was. Like, people doing "End the Fed" chants, like just rowdy, and people were networking. Like, it was really positive. And that's the thing that I learned. So we had a national convention last year in Orlando, and we ran a chair candidate, and we got 40% of the vote. And on the Saturday where we lost the chairs race, that was the only piece of business that we got done that day. So there was no reason to really believe that there was going to be anything good that happens with the rest of the business the next day. So I was sitting here thinking, oh my God, how am I going to hold this all together? How am I going to keep people's spirits up? All that kind of stuff. But instead what happened is, like, we threw a rager at one of our Airbnbs. Everyone had an awesome time. We came back and kicked ass the next day. And that's when it hit me. I'm like, oh, this is like a real community now. And I've been traveling more this year than I ever have, and going state to state to these state Libertarian Party conventions. 40 Mises Caucus people showing up for the business, 50, 60. Here in Pennsylvania, we had over 140 just for the business. And it really is a community. Like, there's a built-in community and culture now. And nobody wants any of the bullshit that you're talking about to erode that. And that is something that I've harped on since the beginning, is the standards, because there's no standards in the party. That's the problem.
Right. Okay, so how does the Mises Caucus stay open? Do people just give you guys money? Like, how do you travel around to all these places? I don't know if you're rich, but maybe you are.
We've got over 1,000 donors per month now, so we're making just under $15,000 a month. That has enabled me. The board gave me a salary, so I am now full time on this shit as of this month. So
awesome! Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah,
that's quite a haul. I like that. That's a good budget to work with.
And we've done it so crudely too. That's what's so crazy about it. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of our potential, in my opinion. Like, the way that we grinded out these 1,000 donors so far has mostly been like me making posts asking about fundraising, identifying the people that like those posts, and then private messaging them. It's so crude. And we haven't even, reached our heights. So I really think that there's no reason that we can't become much bigger. And I think what's going to end up happening is we have another chair candidate. Our chances on this one look very, very good. And we have a slate of people for almost the entire leadership in the LNC, or the Libertarian National Committee. We have platform changes. So that is going to be May, like Labor Day weekend next year in Reno, Nevada.
Oh, so you have to plan that far ahead?
Oh yeah.
Sounds like a long time. Well, okay.
Oh, it's a huge effort. So like what happens is you got the 50 state libertarian parties. They nominate delegates to go to the national, and then that body of delegates elects the leadership. So like we have a organizing team of about 200 people across the country, and then under them they have volunteer lists of thousands of people, and yeah, so it's a real effort. So we have that, we have our podcast, we have content, we have the issue coalition side of things, we have the candidate support side of things, we have the recruitment and organizing side of things. Like it's a serious organization. And what's crazy about it is, I didn't go to college. I was working at Lowe's like 5-6 years ago. I'm just like some guy in every sense of the word. I've never done anything like this prior to this, and I've learned everything as I've gone. And I think that kind of grassroots element to it has been something that's endearing and encouraging to other people.
I would say so. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
So can I run for something? Now I want to run for president. Sorry, Dave. Move over, Buster. No, I'm just kidding. I could be his VP. I'm cool with that.
Well, we need everything. And that's the one thing the thing that I hate the most in the movement is like you get some party, like you get some agorists who are like, oh man, fuck politics. And then you get the apolitical people who are like, fuck politics. Like, we don't do any of that. Like, everybody should specialize in what works for them. If you really just can't stomach the party and you really think that the GOP strategy is what we should be doing, then go do that. Just don't bash us and we won't bash you. I understand what you're doing. You guys got Thomas Massey and shit. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Same with the agorists. You guys can't stomach you can't stomach political activity, and you want to do the counter economic thing. Of course we need that. You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't we? I think we would all do better if we all stopped focusing on how each other's strategies suck, and instead like acknowledge that we're all recognizing the same problems and taking different strategies and supporting each other in those strategies to the best that we can.
I like that attitude. So what's the beef? I mean, I don't know if we need to get in on this show specifically about the latest like New Hampshire LP fight. Like, do we need to? Because I feel like Dave is doing a good job covering that. Tom Woods is, I think, having you on to discuss it. I don't know if my audience cares, but is there anything like worthwhile discussing about that unless you're already inside baseball and just getting all mad? Like, what's the beef?
I'll try to give an extremely brief rundown. I think it's important just to note that another observation of mine in this whole adventure has been that the effect that politics has on the human condition appears to be the same at the extremely low level of the LP as it is in the White House. There's just no like hookers, there's no power, there's no money. The stakes aren't the same, but like the effect that it has on the spirit appears to be the same. So like I said, we are changing a paradigm in the Libertarian Party that has been at play for 15 years. And when an institution has its identity threatened that way, it will fight very, very hard to maintain the old identity, because these people are worried about jobs. They're worried about their strategy. They're worried about their positions and their titles and all these things. So what has happened is, to make a long story short, 2 months ago, the Mises Caucus basically did a clean sweep of the leadership in New Hampshire. And so that has brought on a very bombastic messaging style. And the kind of more blue-pilled moderate people have been very critical of that, and they don't like that. But the proof is in the pudding. Their revenue is up. Their membership is up. Their social media impressions are up by about 10,000%. And so all the metrics are up. And well, the chair of the state party in New Hampshire was so offended by all of this that she basically formed a new organization called the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, populated it with people that lost at the convention 2 months ago, stole all of the assets, like all of the donor data, all of the membership data, locked everybody out of all the social media accounts of the real Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, declared herself in this organization, the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, and got a letter from the chair of the National Party saying, I recognize you as the actual Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. It's completely fraudulent. Like, and I mean that literally.
But you guys won fair and square, right?
Absolutely, like 100%. 100%.
Wow.
And this is just the latest. This ain't the first. It's not going to work.
What's her excuse? Like, why? I'm just a usurper?
Well, her excuse was, they were saying we need to legalize child labor from the Twitter. That's her excuse. Oh, these Mises people are really nasty. You know, they don't like our strategy, and they wouldn't listen to me about going back to the old strategy. And
Why
she basically
do they have
got
to
frustrated.
listen to her? She sucked. I mean, sorry, I don't know this person, but like it seems like the strategy's working better now, so that's just preposterous. But anyway.
Right. And she just got super frustrated and essentially stole a state party. I mean, and it's not even just digital assets. Like there was a storage locker full of audio video equipment, podiums, signs, stole all of that. And yeah, like, and
what's everybody doing on the ground? Are they like going to fight this lady and be like, give us back our signs?
Oh, they're
like,
already
what's
getting,
happening?
yeah, they're already getting some of the stuff. They're lawyering up. They filed a police report. They've sent letters into the LNC saying like, we're getting attorneys. This is like fraudulent criminal behavior. You need, because the National Party has the ability on their back end to give the website access back. And they haven't done that yet because the chair of the National Party is supporting what happened. And the letter, and he's the one who signed the letter saying, yes, we as the National Party recognize you as the real Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, but he has absolutely no authority to do that whatsoever. That is a board decision of all like 18 or whatever, 19 members of the Libertarian National Committee. So, but there are some people on that committee who hate us so bad that they don't care that they engaged in crime to do this. And they, like, and basically they agree with his sentiments, so they're trying to sweep it under the rug, but it's not going to work. I guarantee you it's not going to work. And that should give you just a little taste of what we've been dealing with for the past 3.5 years.
That sounds
we've been branded
ridiculous. I mean, like, what the hell?
Yeah, we've been, and they justify, the way they justify this is because, like I said, it started with Nick, it started from the top, and for the past 3.5 years, they've been saying we're racist, we're transphobes, we're homophobes, we're bigots, all the woke pejoratives are us in one dark sphere. That's us. And yeah, so they've created, basically they can't beat us through legitimate competition, so they try to poison the well to make people hate us, and they don't care about the damage that creating an environment of hate causes. And
but
most
the
of these
Mises
people don't
Caucus
even like
seems
Ron
rock and
Paul.
roll. So that's kind of like competition for them right off the bat, because it's more like rebellious and kind of like naughty.
Exactly. And we're realistic. Like they hate that we're sitting here saying it's this is the way you're not supposed to say. The purpose of the Libertarian Party is actually not primarily political. And it was never founded to be primarily political, ever. And you're not allowed to say that. That's completely written out of the history anymore. But that is the truth. It was something a lot more like Ron Paul. And I actually interviewed Ron Paul recently and asked him, hey, if the Libertarian Party was living up to its potential and fulfilling the role that it ought to be filling, what does that look like in your mind? And he said exactly what the founders of the party said. So.
Wow. I'm jealous that you got to interview Ron Paul. I'm like making a mental note. I never interviewed Ron Paul. So fancy.
It was a fun interview.
Dude, he's the best. I just ran into him here in Miami at the Bitcoin 2021 conference, which was, can you imagine there was 12,000 people here? They were selling tickets in front like a rock concert. Like they were scalping them.
12,000?
12,000. And when you got there was a line around the block that took 3.5 hours to get in. Now that might have been a little bit of a logistics issue, but nonetheless, that's the pent up demand. So I saw Ron Paul. I got a great picture of him and Lynn Ulbricht. And it was just really cool to see him obviously supporting Bitcoin in such a big way. And everybody was like, rockstar Ron Paul is here. Do you guys plan on, is he supportive of the Mises Caucus? Does he feel like he's getting in the middle of a problem or how does that work?
So I don't think he's ever he's 85 years old. So I don't think he's going to get into the weeds of all of this stuff, but we do have a video endorsement up. He was very supportive in the interview. I told him some small numbers. I'm like, Ron, we basically have a controlling stake in about half of the state parties across the country. And we were 40% of the national convention last year. And in the time since then, our numbers have quadrupled. And he was like, oh, good. That's great news. Because, frankly, the Libertarian Party hasn't been kind to him. If you can believe that. Like, the Libertarian Party hasn't exactly been great to him. I mean, the chair of the party called him a Russian asset not long ago. The current chair of the party certainly has no deep affections for Ron Paul. They all, the newsletters that he didn't write. Like all this kind of stuff. And So, but what they don't understand is that behavior is what's driving a lot of our growth.
Yeah. I think people have definitely felt like the LP is milquetoast. Although I don't know. I mean, I've worked with the LP on different things. Like I've enjoyed my interactions with the people there. So how do you make sure that people like, what about people like me, right? Like Jess Mears, super cool chick. I'd love to see her. I'm going to see her at Pork Fest. She's amazing. She's so enthusiastic. I don't hate her, but I like you. I like what you're saying. I'm a regular person. What do regular people do if they feel like they're in the middle of the Mises Caucus and then just like regular LP? Like, do they have to pick a side?
They don't have to pick a side, but I think by action, a side will be taken for them. That seems to be the pattern. It's not us that's drawing the lines per se. What we're saying is essentially something like this. Hey, we have a different vision for how the party ought to operate. And that's okay. And you guys have been operating for 15 years. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in, we're going to recruit our own way. We're going to recruit Ron Paul people, we're going to recruit Mises Institute people, and we're going to go for these leadership positions for reasons X, Y, and Z. But it doesn't have to be a nasty fight. It could be a friendly competition. And if we agree with each other that the general interests of the party are over us, then it doesn't have to be a hateful, spiteful thing. It could just be, the party gets built up in the process no matter who wins. And even if you lose, it's like, there's next year. And the reaction to that mindset has basically been like, okay, you're a transphobe. Is that me drawing lines? Or is that the people who stand to lose? And that's mostly who it is. It's a small number of people. It's not the whole party. It's a small number of people, most of whom stand to lose, that are doing this. So I don't want to say they have to draw lines, but I think eventually lines will be drawn for them. I mean, there's people out there who will literally say, if you support the Mises Caucus, you are a trash human being, and I don't want anything to do with you. And we don't do that to them. Like, we support...
What is it that you say? What is it that you're doing that's so bad? Why is everybody hating on you? I haven't heard anything weird.
It's because we're transphobes, we're bigots. We don't subscribe to the SJW stuff. We don't subscribe to the woke stuff, and that has taken over the strategy. Like, the leadership is mostly sold on this woke shit. And so like in our platform, we have a plank where we just point blank say identity politics is trash. And that is a problem. That is a big problem because a lot of these people have made their bread and butter on pandering to woke identity politics. So us saying, nope, that's out of here. That is a big threat because, again, these are the people that have controlled the party it's not the same people that have controlled the party, but the same vision that has controlled the party for 15 years. And that's what they've subscribed to, and we're threatening that paradigm.
Okay. Well, we're going to see how it pans out.
We don't believe racism is the biggest problem in the world. We think statism is slightly bigger.
Oh my God. I don't even understand people getting mad about racism because yes, racism sucks, obviously, but I just don't think that human beings are capable of not being racist. Like, I think that when you look at somebody, you see something and you make a judgment and you can later on correct yourself and be like, hey, I'm being judgmental based on their skin or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, that's going to get me in trouble just for saying that out loud. But like, I don't understand how you're just supposed to get people to think differently. It just seems like thought control. I don't think that beating them over the head with the like acceptance stick is necessarily a good way to make people more accepting of people with different backgrounds.
Well, there's
I don't know. I've always felt like it's kind of pointless.
There's two versions of libertarianism. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's more than two, but in the sense of what we're talking about, there's kind of two versions of libertarianism. There's a universalist ethos libertarianism where we have the NAP and we have our preferences and that must be enforced. Or there's the self-determination side of libertarianism where, okay, well, I'm going to do my thing and you're going to do your thing and your thing might suck. I might completely hate your thing. But it's none of my business, and I'm going to just do my thing and let you go. The party's been captured by the universalist vision.
Well, I don't know. I'm glad to see that you guys are fighting back because it seems, things have gotten very different from 2012.
They have. Yeah, it's dissipated, and I feel like there's a lot less hope, and there's a lot less optimism.
Totally. Yeah.
And that can be restored through community because I think it's the community that had us feeling optimistic in the first place. It was rallied around a leader. It was rallied around Ron Paul. But my observation is that the Ron Paul movement was always destined to dissipate because it was one campaign, one man, and that always ends no matter what. But if you can recapture that in the form of an organization, it never has to die. It could just keep going, and the community could just keep building. That's what we're trying to do.
All right. I like it. Cool. So how can people support you?
So our website is lpmisescaucus.com. You can check out our platform there. You can check out, like I said, our three-pronged strategy. There's all kinds of resources there to help you get started in the Libertarian Party if you're new. And you can also go to takehumanaction.com, sign up for our email list. That will get you routed to, well, not just on our email list, but that'll get you routed to our state-level organizers to try to get you involved. And you can also donate at takehumanaction.com. You can sign up to be a recurring donor for as little as $5 a month. Help us put forward the message of decentralization and the Fed and the wars, Austrian economics, decentralization, property rights, free association. You
guys take Bitcoin, right?
Absolutely.
And other cryptocurrencies? All right. One last question.
I could use help on the other cryptocurrencies, but it's not my fault. It's the FEC. So.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that. Really? So you can't take like Ethereum donations? Why not?
We have to liquidate crypto immediately. So, like, the best that we can use is, don't hate me, BitPay. Like, we have to use BitPay and shit like that.
BitPay. I don't know why people rag on BitPay. Tony's amazing. Tony and Stephen Pear sold me my first Bitcoins. They'll be forever grateful. You know, those guys, they had balls. They supported me at the Ron Paul Tampa conference. That's how I got involved with BitPay in the first place, because they sponsored my performance, the Thank You Ron Paul performance. They sponsored it because they recognized the importance of liberty and the importance of Bitcoin. So anybody knocking those guys, I don't get it. Enough with that.
Essentially, even if you donate in crypto, there's certain information that, as a matter of the FEC, that we have to collect. We can't not, or we're going to get in trouble. Like, we have to get your name, we have to get your address, we have to get your employer and your occupation.
All right. Well, we got to, keep it above board. Keep the feds at bay.
Keep me out of prison.
Yeah, no one needs to go to jail. Oh, gosh, I'm not done. I have more for you. One more thing. What is the Mises Caucus doing about Ross Ulbricht? Do you guys support Ross Ulbricht?
Absolutely. Yeah, I haven't reached out yet, so I guess I'm revealing this now, but I was going to reach out to Lynn and see if she wanted to come to the Libertarian National Committee. Not that I'm not on, or to the Libertarian National Party's convention in 22. I'm not on the committee that does that, but I can talk to her. I have friends there. I can certainly try.
I would love to see Lynn there. I personally would like to be there. I want to see this raucous caucus going on. Awesome.
It's going to be
Thanks
colorful.
So much.
I can guarantee you that.
Oh, it always is, right? I mean, the fight for freedom is never boring. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Michael, for joining us today. Everybody, please check out the lpmisescaucus.com. See what's going on there. Consider giving them a monthly donation. And we'll see you next time on The Tatiana Show. Share this around and tell your friends. Bye. What's the point of all this technology without a little love in our lives? Our hosts, Tatiana Moroz and Lauren Kasovitz, have come together to bring you Proof of Love. Go to proofoflovecast.com. The Tatiana Show has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond. Hey there, it's time for the show, the Tatiana Show, where you make friends and talk life and crypto. We gotta think and reflect and use lots of intellect with our hearts when we work together. I know that it can be so hard out there, looking all around and saying that life ain't fair. So that is why we will fight and stay up late at night, listening to the Tatiana Show. Thank you for listening to the Tatiana Show. Please follow us on Twitter at Queen Tatiana or on Facebook and Instagram at Tatiana Moroz Music. More episodes can be found at thetatianashow.com, and make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. You are listening to The Tatiana Show. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on the Tatiana Show is intended as financial advice, legal advice, or really anything other than entertainment. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're listening to us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on or of any sponsors or any affiliate products you may hear about on this show.